And welcome, ladies and gentlemen, back to the Valley of the Judged. I am your one and only gaming monk, better known as Mildra, and with me I have two of my good brothers and sisters. Ha 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 ha. We have the man behind the Wanderer's Library, good brother Sig.
Hello, everybody. Hope you're having a wonderful day and had a wonderful holiday.
And our resident dragon gremlin, good sister Tabby.
I am scribbling. It is scribble time.
Quite. So,
Yes.
after going through Path of Aramthir a little bit, as well as our lengthy look at Draw Steel, which I promise we will be coming back to at some point, but it's going to be quite a few months before we do.
Hopefully, I'll have the books before then.
Mm-hmm. And hey, I can say that I did a better look at Draw Steel than a certain former colleague of mine. Because, dear Lord, going through that thing was painful.
Like I said, I couldn't even get through the first few paragraphs before I said, "Now I'm bored."
I liken it to that one attached document that got sent my firm's way that was from a sovereign citizen, which had a complaint that was 250 pages long for a file that only is usually 2 pages. So it just got shared with everybody, and I remember trying to go through it, and it just kept going and going, and I'm like, I'm out of here in about 15 minutes. That's enough for today. But regardless, as I kind of hinted at on my socials earlier in this month, the latter end of December and the majority of January, the focus is going to be on Japanese tabletop once again. Now, MagicPunk, I've had this in my library for a few months, but I wasn't able to say anything proper because of the embargo. Now, technically, I didn't have to follow the embargo, but I chose to because I'm not an asshole. At least not that kind of asshole. Also, I see
integrity.
Yeah, I see Loving Fool in the chat, and I see Mr. Amov in the chat. So, this is a new entry when it comes to the wonderful world of Japanese tabletop, and how fitting that Sig, you and I started our adventures in the valley with Japanese tabletop, and we end the year's adventures with Japanese tabletop.
Been a hell of a ride, man, and I'm happy to have been part of it.
Yeah. But I would be remiss if I didn't point out some of the really, really bad takes I saw regarding MagicPunk when TG got a hold of it a little while ago. And one of them I specifically called out because it demonstrated why I have such disdain for grognards. And I'm just going to read off the quote and saying, "Absolute negative punk levels. I'm disappointed. Somehow worse than Tokyo Nova, which has a billion punk archetypes but doesn't tell you what happens when you get caught by the police equivalent." There were a few other comments like that, and it basically amounted to, it isn't trying to be like Shadowrun, therefore it sucks. As if you're doing...
Or the DSP equivalent. This game doesn't explain anything.
Yeah.
That's what it read like to me.
And I've seen this kind of thing before when it comes to Cyberpunk as a whole, and I did say within one of the translation servers that a lot of people have a very wrong view of what Cyberpunk is. And I am treading familiar ground with this, but I do want to get it so I can set the stage here. a lot of people their view of cyberpunk is locked in the 80s. And yes, a lot of cyberpunk started out in the 80s and 90s. I don't deny that. But what I mean is that it's stuck in the kind of futurism that was predicted by futurists in the 1980s. A big example of that is this idea that you need to have the rebelling against the megacorp. Clearly Japan didn't get that memo. If you look at the cyberpunk that was in the OVA boom of the 80s and 90s. And there's also the fact that, hang on, let me move my mic a little bit closer. In the 1980s, there was the corporate raider problem in the financial world. And when you take that into account, the insistence on using that whole late-stage corporatism in so many cyberpunk works starts to make sense, and also illustrates a limitation in thinking. Cyberpunk is a midway point between the technophobic and the technophilic, and a largely getting over the technological fears that cropped up in the 1970s. You may remember the living plastic monsters in Doctor Who. That was that was a nod to the fear of plastic that was in various parts of culturally in the 1970s. It's also why you see cars from that time that had this completely useless wood side paneling.
Christopher Eccleston, underrated doctor in my opinion.
I'm talking about the original time the Plastic Men showed up. That was Pertwee.
Yeah, I didn't remember which one the original one was. It's been a hot minute.
Yeah. But and Loving Fool points out that MagicPunk isn't about that theme either. It's less morally gray. You are the good guy. And that was another thing that some people in TG took issue with. Because, and yes, there's been a lot of moral gray, but I don't dislike morally gray storytelling. What I have an issue with, and the reason why a lot of people who seem to push for that end up getting on my shit list, is this idea that morally gray storytelling equals mature storytelling. This is in the same vein as when someone tells you that because of the darker tone, Batman is more mature than Superman.
No.
It is a very childish way to view it. As in that kind of rush to appear grown up is something that you would expect of a child. And the idea, plus there's also the fact that when everybody's doing the whole morally gray thing, it's a little bit harder to stand out.
It's the idea that if everyone's doing something like that, then no one is.
Yeah, and for me personally, it's also emblematic of something I've talked about in the past. There's a term that I use in the monastery called design by gospel. Where we do things a certain way because we've always done things a certain way. Why have we always done things a certain way? Because that's the way we do it. If that sounds very circular, that's because it is. A lot of the tradition for its own sake thinking is in that direction.
The whole "this just works" philosophy, so just roll with it.
Yeah. And as somebody who was on the outs with a certain type of player within D20 systems that I've talked about in the past. I had more than my fair share of that thrown at me, uh, especially when it comes to drawing upon things other than Tolkien for the umpteenth time, or just wanting to emphasize other cultural mythos within writing fantasy or writing science fiction.
So basically, sticking to a topic because it's safe to do so.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yes.
The
safe way to do things.
And Hydra says that traditional thinking is why Rangers still suck in D&D. Rangers have sucked since day one. We've covered that. The reason and a lot of it ties into the fact that it's kind of hard to do a outdoorsy character when so much of the published material has you underground or in caves. Well, that and those kind of characters don't really fit the war game aesthetic.
Mm-mm.
Not unless you make whole rules about them, like say scout units in certain war games. But obviously, we're not going to be going through the whole thing of MagicPunk in one go. But there are going to be some interesting things to cover. And I know why some people brought up Shadowrun with this, but honestly, I don't see it. At least from what I saw of the preview. If anything, this feels far more like say, I guess things like Silent Mobius or some of the stuff that would come out of the OVA bubble.
Mm-hmm.
But much like with Tokyo Nova, we have a post-apocalypse. Especially with the Metropolitan Sanctuary Keepereth, which you're not fooling me. That is the Sephiroth.
Yeah, when I remember when Mildred first showed me the book and I saw this picture, I'm like, I recognize this. I just at the time couldn't put my finger on what it was.
Mm-hmm. Let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Yep, 10 heavenly attributes. That is the Sephiroth.
Mm-hmm.
But
I just realized my mic was on my head this entire time.
Uh-oh.
Yep. You don't have to be blonde to have a blonde moment.
Yep. But it says, after Paradise Lost 200 years ago, in a world now in ruin, the Metropolitan Sanctuary was built as a survival zone for humanity and is now home to 10 million folks. It is made up of 10 districts, each with its own unique role to play, ranging from places where most citizens live to areas where security is tight. Your PC as Mavericks will be living here, diving headfirst into the endless stream of trouble and incidents.
Kind of reminds me of the opening to SMT2.
That I could see as well.
I could see that.
And you have the Mages of Academia. Originally devoted to the advancement and research of magic, has now become the world's true rulers. Under the guise of managing the world, they monopolize the resources and blessings of magic. Only Mavericks have the strength to oppose these corrupt mages and save those who cannot protect themselves. I think, and that apparently got, as I said before, that got some people triggered over the fact that in this kind of setting, you're not playing a rogue who's doing just about anything for the next paycheck. No, you are some kind of heroic figure.
Basically, you're a rogue mage opposing what is essentially a magiocracy.
Mm-hmm.
Or at least segments of them.
Yeah. but it goes back into that concept of I think because we have the high technology and magic, I think some people thought it was going to be something like Shadowrun, which is definitely doing the cyberpunk just with magic as well as high tech. But
Mhm.
if they're not interested in doing that, it's kind of stupid to hold that against them.
Mhm.
But plus, when it comes to the whole punk thing, punk is just as much about having a DIY mindset as anything else. Like I said, a lot of people's view of it is very hyper focused on one thing and applying that focus to the whole of it. It's in this, and I know that's the case because Sig, did I ever tell you about the non-dystopia concept that I kicked around some years back?
Mm-mm.
No.
So when I was doing the topic-based podcast Geek Watch, I pitched an idea that we ended up expanding on. That being a cyberpunk that was not doing a corporate dystopia. And I had a few people yell at me. I got kicked out of a writers group over it. And one of the claims that was made was that you do that, you'll just have a utopia, or you won't have any conflict. None of that I ever said.
Mhm.
I simply said not doing the evil corp kind of thing in cyberpunk. Much in the same way that you can do a fantasy setting and not draw upon the work of Tolkien, or do a Western Europe pastiche. Now, of course, if somebody wants to do that, more power to them. But I reject the idea that that's what you have to do. And getting back to the heart of the matter, what the book itself describes its genre of MagicPunk as worse labels with punk typically share three core elements: highly developed with symbiotic technology, a dystopian society or setting, and rebellion against the systems of oppression. In MagicPunk, these core elements are expressed as highly advanced magic, a society that relies on such magic to survive despite the scarcity of magical resources, and in opposition to the privileged elite who govern magic and the struggles of those simply trying to live within such a system. And while it...
So haves and have-nots in a much different way.
Mm-hmm. But it does go into the world of Malkuth. 200 years ago, a disaster known as Paradise Lost struck the world, causing a massive surge of brilliant magical energy that once blessed humanity to seep into the land and contaminate it. Humanity was thus forced to retreat into confined safe zones called sanctuaries. Sanctuaries are managed by magic power devices known as Magir, and maintaining those requires enormous amounts of air. As a result, air resources became society's greatest asset and the driving force of a sanctuary's economy. When we go into academia's rule, humanity can only survive the harsh world brought about by Paradise Lost thanks to magic. The study and management of magic falls to mages, organized under the group known as academia. The vast majority of people are essentially at the mercy of academia, whose power over life and death has turned mages into a privileged elite. Few dare to oppose them. Amid it all, some resist academia's rule, staying true to their will and convictions. These rebels are known as mavericks, people like you. Most people avoid mavericks, who are ever under the watchful eyes of academia. Anyone who gets involved with one is sure to get dragged into trouble. Yet at the same time, there are those who admire the mavericks, even if from afar. Even the most obedient citizens secretly wish, if only a little, to live so freely.
This is so. This is like steps away from being called a heretic. I'll see myself out.
I will consider that if we end up dealing with way too many projectiles, or I hear some roadmen saying Maramax Inferno.
Two completely different games.
But then they go into what a TTRPG is, or TRPG, and the concept of roleplay, the purpose of the game, as well as guidelines. Then we have the sections proper. First, the player section, then the rules section proper. So, then data and world. So, a fairly standard format when it comes to Japanese tabletop. This sort of 4-section approach we've seen. Well, not 4-section, but this kind of approach we've seen quite a bit. Obviously, then the GM and 3 sample scenarios. And a few further notes regarding the math. If you see a plus minus, you can treat it as either a plus or minus at the time the effect is applied. So the flex approach. With fractions, always round up, unless a rule says otherwise. If a number is a substitute, it'll usually say so. If you have this particular symbol here, that means the value can be up to or below it. And the priority of multiplication and division. So if you're at all familiar with PEMDAS, you're gonna be in good hands here. Then the notation format. And then we have some of the core stuff that you're going to be using. You are going to be using a 20-sided die, though from what I skimmed, that is the only die you're going to be using. So I know somebody's going to look at the 20-sided die and scream out the name of the world's most litigious role-playing game. To that I say, sit down, shut up, the adults are talking.
Well, more than
child.
just one game plays, uses a 20-sided die there.
There's been a few incidents where somebody looks at you roll a d20 and think, oh, this must have been taking notes from D&D. And that's not always the case. And whenever you make that assumption, you end up looking like the bigger fool. Because you know what they say about assuming.
I just gotta say that. Yeah. I just gotta say that, you rolling a 20-sided die just means that you're just trying to do a 5% percentile, if you will.
And Loving Fool said he recently played Fallout 2D20, and this is comparable to that. I need to look into that because I was asked by Zan to look further into it to see if it supposedly sucks as much as one of his friends says it does. I have a feeling that's not going to be the case, because whenever someone says something sucks because I said so, there's usually more to it that is being conveniently ignored. But one of the other things, and this is another reason why it's a bit of a full circle for us, Sig. To represent Or and Orite, which we'll get to later, you need at least 2 decks of playing cards.
Easy. Let's go.
Uh, Generally, only 2 decks are needed, but if you have many players, more decks should be added. And of course, things like tokens, writing utensils, and sheets. But then we get into the player section proper, and the first thing that we go right into is what's going to be common knowledge for Mavericks. So, we already mentioned the sanctuaries, and the main reason why people don't go outside those sanctuaries is the threat of our disasters and mutants, creatures distorted by excessive exposure to air. And in that regard, since the fact that you have a civilized area and an uncivilized wilderness, this has more in common with Mega City 1 or as mentioned before, Mega 10.
Mm-hmm.
Because remember, Mega City 1, outside of that is the Cursed Earth, as well as other sanctuaries, but I'm getting ahead of myself there. But long ago, Malkuth was believed to be a paradise, flourishing under the blessings of the Sephiroth tree. 200 years ago, a catastrophe known as Paradise Lost destroyed the tree, reducing the world to its current state. This was caused by academia and its mages. At first, academia hid the truth about Paradise Lost, but after 200 years, the real truth is well known among the public. As a result, many people harbor a deep resentment toward academia.
I mean, you can only get away with so many nuclear apocalypses before people start to lose faith in you.
Mm-hmm. But academia established 9 sanctuaries. Each of these being a nod to one of the heavenly attributes. The most important and familiar sanctuary is Tipereth, the 6th sanctuary. And they'll be going into the other ones in more detail later on in the book. So Tipereth you could kind of see as the closest thing to home turf. It is often referred to as the Metropolitan Sanctuary and is the most populous of the 9. In fact, half of the total population of all sanctuaries reside here. And Tipereth is the closest thing to the middle with the layout that you could find, and is divided into 10 wards. So you have the first ward for high-ranking academia mages and their families. You're not getting in unless you have a personal invitation. The second ward, the academia's research facilities. If you're a mage or student at the Academy of Magic, you'll come here often, otherwise you're not getting in. The third ward is office buildings and factories for industrial and manufacturing companies. It is easy to get in because of how much stuff gets moved in and out of them. The fourth ward is home to medical and welfare facilities, public hospitals, clinics, community centers, schools for the general public, temporary housing for the poor and refugees, and even cemeteries.
That's pretty grim.
Mm-hmm.
I don't like that.
Yep. The fifth ward is where you'll find government ministries and judicial offices. If you're involved in government or legal work, you'll probably come and go often, but it's the last place you want to be if you have something to hide. The sixth ward, the centermost ward of the sanctuary. A colossal 2,500 meter tower dominates the heart of the ward, the generator for the wall that protects the sanctuary. Access to the tower is restricted to sanctuary admin personnel only. The rest of the ward, as befits Central Tipereth, is always busy and full of life and trouble. This is also home to Mags and Mavs, a bar frequented by Mavericks, where fixers, intermediaries for Mavericks, so think of the fixers from Cyberpunk or the Mr. Johnsons from Shadowrun, sometimes arrive with new jobs. And the 7th ward is... I like that they call it entertainment, but it's the red light district. Oh.
It's the red light district.
And the 8th ward, a sprawling slum inhabited mostly by Tipereth's poorest immigrants from other sanctuaries, and refugees granted entry to the Metropolitan Sanctuary often end up here. Hiding among them are also illegals whose citizen IDs have been revoked. The 8th ward is a hotbed of underworld activity. Rumor has it that mafia bosses run cutthroat illegal races and brutal pit fights here. Unless you're desperate for cash or have a taste for danger, you do well to steer clear of this place. So, of course, Mavericks will do plenty of jobs there.
Imagine freaking magic-wielding Yakuza. That sounds awesome.
Although...
I'm good with that one.
One could argue the Ryuga Gotoku games are doing that already.
With how goofy and just batshit insane they are, yeah, I would say so.
But then the 9th ward contains facilities vital to maintaining public order. If you work for the Sanctuary Security Bureau, you'll visit frequently. Otherwise, there's little reason to come. Then the 10th ward is the only entrance and exit to the city and the garrison of the Sanctuary military. You'll pass through here anytime you work a job outside Tipereth, so you may find it more familiar than you might expect. Oh. And then we have the economy of the Metropolitan Sanctuary, where the most common use is aurite, a crystallized form of R. The main ways to obtain it are mining aurite veins or hunting mutants and extracting the crystals embedded in their bodies. As a result, miners who make a living by extracting aurite and hunters who earn their keep by hunting mutants are regarded as standout professions in this world's primary industries. Aurite can be traded for money just like a jewel or precious metal. So there's if you need an easy way to get people out of the city to do a job, there's an easy one. Although I'd imagine as we get further in, dealing with mutants is not something you should be doing out of the gate.
Oh, hell no.
Otherwise, everybody'd be doing it. But then we have Magica. All sanctuaries use R as the basis for currency. However, since R itself is intangible and bartering aurite isn't always practical, specially developed coins called Magica are used instead. These coins, about 30 millimeters wide and 3 millimeters thick, are made from auril, a metal known for its high R conductivity, and are designed to store a set amount of R. As R is stored, the coin's color changes from silver to a pale bluish white, and at full capacity, a vivid sky blue. The value of a Magica coin is based on the percentage of R stored inside it. 1% is worth 1 Magica, 50% is 50 Magica, and 100% is 100 Magica. The ore stored inside a Magica coin is protected against tampering and can only be withdrawn or charged using special charging terminals at ore banks or other authorized shops. So you effectively have a magical coin version of a cash card.
I imagine, considering that this was part of the thing that kind of screwed the world, just imagine how toxic that must be.
But ore tax, in order to maintain citizenship, you have to pay an ore tax once a month. The amount changes per person, but is based on the ward of the residence and is due the first day of every month. The consequences for tax evasion are harsh. If you can't pay within a week of receiving a notice, your citizenship is revoked without exception. Remember, the
Really?
will always get their money, and even the Joker didn't want to mess with the IRS. But then we have transportation. Tippereth spans roughly 10 kilometers north to south and 5 kilometers east to west, arranged in the shape of the Sephiroth sign, with its 10 wards placed to match the 10 Sephira, each of which is connected by wide highways modeled after the paths. This specific arrangement isn't just practical, it holds a magical significance, helping maintain Tippereth's infrastructure. Aside from the main highways, the rest of the city is largely organized into a numbered grid of sheets. So about what you'd expect from a typical city. At least a city whose roads are actually built on sane grids instead of whatever the hell the Twin Cities are based on.
Mm-hmm.
Or Sydney. I've seen the layout for Sydney compared to Melbourne. Melbourne has more of a grid basis. Sydney is fuck you.
Oh, wow.
But there is also a subway system simply called the Metro, which connects the whole city beneath the surface. It is a free ride for citizens, but it will only open up for certain wards if you have permission. And hello there, Hex TV. Welcome to the party. If you need to get somewhere that the Metro doesn't reach, you can call a Galgalim, a self-driving taxi equipped with an artificial spirit. A quick order on an M phone sends a Galgalim to your location, guided by your ID chip signal anywhere in the city. Their security features are reliable, making them the perfect getaway in a dangerous situation. I think that paragraph alone is a good indicator of how ingrained the use of magic is within this particular city.
So much that they have spirits as drivers for taxis.
Mm-hmm.
Good lord.
So anything
I
that
like it.
Yeah, anything that might seem high tech just from looking at the art is likely using magic.
This is magic on steroids, maybe. Jeez.
I like it.
Mm-hmm. And
Anytime I can have massive amounts of magic, I'm good.
Of course, outside the city is the Outland, where you might find exiles, people who couldn't pay the tax and lose their citizen ID, as well as mutants, who, because of the R mutation, they don't have any sense of reason. I do like that it says, for your own safety, don't make the mistake of trying to befriend them.
Then you have that one guy in the party who tries to befriend friend them and ends up dead as a result.
Or befriends them and now has an army.
Nope.
Oh yes. Am I the only one who had an army of gnomes?
Yes.
You know what? I rolled high. Okay, I'm sorry.
Oh. Well, gnomes are one thing, but I think a better parallel would be the bear whisperer. You know, the guy who thought that he could communicate with bears and thought the bears had accepted him, and then they ate him. Funniest movie I ever saw.
Based on a true story.
Yeah, but then we have what a maverick is. And as mentioned, Mavericks often get offered dangerous jobs or biz that no one else would touch. This kind of biz isn't handed out through the biz board. Instead, a fixer will come directly to you with a request. If you want to do biz in the city, you have to remember these 4 names. The mage technician for the wall, Morgana. Mayor Wolfgang Jaeger. 8th Ward Abbess Martel. And 2nd class officer Gary Garland. So those are 4 potential contacts. And then we have a nice sidebar about the origin of the term Maverick. This story takes place long before Paradise Lost. During the golden age of mages' research into magic, those without magical talent were denied fundamental rights and were treated as little more than slaves. Among them was a man named Maverick, who grew furious at the other slaves for simply resigning themselves to their fate. "Why won't you speak up? Why don't you fight back?" But whenever he pleaded, the others simply looked away, their eyes cast down. Faced with such relentless injustice, their spirits had been crushed. They had given up on truly living and settled for merely not dying. Realizing this, Maverick resolved that he, at least, would choose to live. From that day on, Maverick refused every task assigned to him. No matter how much he was beaten or whipped, he refused to budge an inch. Eventually, the mages lost patience with him, captured Maverick, and hanged him in public as an example. For 3 days and 3 nights, Maverick suffered in agony before his final breath. Throughout it all, he never uttered a word. He simply faced everyone with a fearless smile. The other slaves could only look up at him in silence, watching. Why am I thinking of the Proto-Men?
Oh no, but that story was pretty cool.
Yeah. Seg, are you familiar with the musical act known as the Proto-Men?
I've heard the name, I just don't remember what I've heard by them.
They did a dystopian take on the Mega Man mythos.
Oh wow.
And the 3rd act for that is supposed to be finally, after over a decade of waiting, coming out next month.
Nice.
They also did a cover album just dedicated to Queen.
Awesome.
But see, then it goes into how to punk. With the things of live boldly, stand by your convictions, defy injustice, chase your ideals, be free no matter what. See, I think he was once called the Brakeman. Fool says. But I will go go out on a limb and say that because of what we have when it comes to how to punk, this has a better understanding of the punk part of MagicPunk or Cyberpunk than a lot of people who throw around that term know it. Especially since I said in the past there is a certain irony in people who claim to have that punk aesthetic and yet seem to overvalue conformity. So in a roundabout way, I suppose a parallel would be the Outlaws and Outlaw Star. But
Pirates, the Space Forces, and the Outlaws, the 3 major powers of space.
Mm-hmm. I did try and run an Outlaw Star campaign in GURPS a long time ago. I don't recommend doing that. There are better options, but it's what I had at the time, so I made do.
Shit, imagine doing a story like Outlaw Star in this game.
Given the nature of places like Blue Heaven, it wouldn't be too difficult. But then we have We have, of course, the rules section, which we'll be getting into next week. I know we didn't get too much into the crunch, but that will be happening very soon. But obviously, at the tail end, we have a glossary of terms. You know, GM, we know what that is. Player, we know what that is. PC and NPC, we know what that is. Dice, and it looks like we are only using the D20. Roll or choice is a case of either rolling on a table or picking an item on the table. This is something I've seen in a lot of games. Then we have the whole notion of playing cards, a rule where a character's focus area is shown using red cards, and their held alright is shown with black cards. That's an interesting setup. Let's see, then session, scenario, we know what those are. Then a few of the setting terms. Malkuth, the world where MagicPunk is set. Air, the power source for magic. The Sephiroth tree. A massive tree-like structure that once loomed over Malkuth's land. Its collapse 200 years ago triggered a planet-wide disaster known as Paradise Lost. Sephirothism, the global religion dedicated to the Sephiroth tree. Even after its collapse, the tree remains an object of worship as it continues to release the blessing of air. And magic. Modern magic, systematized through research into the Sephiroth tree using the Sephiroth sign. A pattern based on the tree's structure, practitioners manipulate air to produce a variety of phenomena. Then Magir, a general term for devices imbued with magic. Then mages, a member of academia formally recognized as having mastered academic magic. Mages who have been exiled or gone astray are called rogue mages. And we've already discussed academia. Then sanctuaries, which is what the city is. Then empties, a term for people who cannot absorb any air into their body. Exiles, we already covered that. The Outland and mutants, we already covered. And Loving Fool said, honestly, I could see myself playing in a lot of settings in this, even Mega Man, though sooner looking at Robotic Age for that. I'd say Robotic Age or Boss Rush 21XX would fit if you're trying to do Mega Man. I'm not saying you couldn't do it with this, but you're gonna be doing it. You're gonna be doing some work. And obviously, once we get into the rules section next week, we will be diving headfirst into character creation.
Ooh, I'm gonna make sure I have a notebook for this one.
But so far, what do you guys think of the type of setting we have for MagicPunk?
I like it. I want to play it.
I'm a fan.
It's very different than, or rather completely different than other games I'm used to, especially ones that more lean into the magic side of things.
And because of the approach, this is another one of those cases where the martial magic divide is kind of pointless because everybody is as far as the PCs are concerned is using magic. I will note in advance when it comes to rolling die, you are trying to aim high with the roll. Actually, I have to correct myself. It is an aim low, which is why I think Fool had brought up 2d20. So you d20, you're trying to aim under a given stat. If you meet the stat, it's considered a jackpot. If you roll a 1, it's considered a bad beat. So that's your critical success and failure. And there is also the fact that the deck of cards is going to be split into the red side and the black side. And that is how your MP is going to end up working for spells proper as well as mod gear. We'll obviously be getting into more detail with it later, but once again we have a case where you're not going to. I mean, you could hoard when it comes to magic, and save it to do some sort of alpha strike, but from what I'm seeing here, there's not really a benefit to doing that. I could be wrong, and we'll definitely see as we go into it.
Mm-hmm.
But this is one more case where we are clearly not dealing with the we're not dealing with the Vancian model or anything like that, because as I've mentioned before, fuck that model. And if anything, from what I looked at it with the pre-gens, which we'll be getting into next time, what we have here is not far removed from that skill spread kind of setup that we saw with Tokyo Nova all those months ago.
Yeah.
There isn't the three skill or 3 class setup that Tokyo Nova had, but you have some similar approaches. And I will note when it comes to the sample characters, there's a good variety, which there always is, and that's set up with sample characters is something that I wanted to do with Legend Edition at some point. It just didn't make sense for the core book to do that, but I could see myself doing that for a full book regarding Project Gaia. And I think, and obviously some of that we'll be getting into in the coming weeks, but Fool points out that someone in the server had already made a auto Google sheet for the game, which that's going to be nice. It'll make things a lot less of a headache in certain parts.
Yeah.
But overall, I'm trying to think of parallels when it comes to the type of magic-based society that this is doing. A recent parallel might be Subversion, but Subversion does a much different approach. I know some people will bring up Shadowrun, but honestly, Shadowrun is only applicable in the most basic surface level approach, because you still have tech in Shadowrun. The vibe I get with MagicPunk is anything that has any sort of technology basis is powered by magic. And I just realized what would be a good parallel, even though this might be a bit left field for some. Guilty Gear, and to a much lesser extent, BlazBlue.
Yep, I can definitely see that. I'd actually with the way this is kind of a post-apocalypse, I'd lean more toward BlazBlue.
Well, Guilty Gear is also a post-apocalypse, given the whole universal will thing. So that, and all but one nation has jumped onto the magic train, that being Zep.
Mm-hmm.
But, and obviously going further into the type of magic that those settings use is a rabbit hole I don't feel like going into tonight.
That's okay. Another time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Remember, in GG, the USA is nuked. Yeah, and Japan is an endangered species.
Near extinction.
Mm-hmm.
See, that part feels very SMT-like, but that's the only part that feels SMT-like right now.
If I were to draw any SMT parallels,
there's some
it
other
would
parts,
be SMT 2.
Yeah.
3, definitely not. Although we already covered Tokyo Conception this year. And 4, I mean, maybe you could draw some parallels with the Samurai in 4, but that feels a bit of a stretch. 5, definitely.
I could see it. I could see the Samurai only because like that's the one I played the most of, but I could see the Samurai because of the magic and all of that. But 2 is more for sure.
Mm-hmm. And if, definitely not. If anything, if is a prototype for what we'd see in Persona. And 9, only the hardest of the hardcore know about 9. But that being said, that will do it for this particular episode. This was always going to be a short one because, well, the first episodes of seasons usually end up being the shortest because there isn't as much crunch as to go into.
Yeah, it's just introducing us to the game proper before we get really into it.
Mm. Yeah, and we certainly will. But with that said, I will see some of you tomorrow, hopefully, for the Hangover Shit Show. That'll be at around 3 p.m. It should be a very interesting affair. I know I wrote it as noon on the setup, but I had to shift it. And Bull says I'm so hyped for this since it's something I've had the chance to read. Welcome to the monastery. I knew I was going to be covering this when I first skimmed through it. I just had to wait due to scheduling and other factors. But with that said, I will see you all next time. And as always, A sincere thanks to everyone who took the time out of their schedule to come onto the show and enjoy the madness. And there will be plenty more where that came from, as there always is here, on the open bar of the internet. But until then, on behalf of the good brothers present and not present, my name is Mildra. I am your gaming monk. Stay fucking frosty, everybody.
Be on the trail.
Take care.